Hello, welcome back to another video here on my channel. Today we are going over my top series of 2023. These are not necessarily going to be in order, and I don't know how much information I'm going to talk about with each series. I feel like a lot of these series you already know of, you've heard of. I feel like not much information is really needed. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and hop into today's video. The first series I want to start off with is actually probably my least like of all of these that I have sitting out. It is To All the Boys I Loved Before series. I honestly, the only problem I feel like I had with this series, if I can remember it, I read this back in, I think, Valentine's Day. I read this all the way back in February, so it's been a while, and there is a lot about these books that I have forgotten, but I feel like the biggest problem was I was just being forced to remember my high school. I didn't have necessarily that high school time, but there were certain things that I just didn't really care much to be back into high school about. I did like these. I don't like the movie adaptations to these. I feel like if I would have never read the books, they would have been fine, but I feel like they did not follow for the most part. Like, they got the overall premise or plot of the first book. This whole series was actually pretty decent if I remember correctly. I do believe the second book was my favorite. I love the covers. I love everything about these. I still want to read, what's the other series? The Summer I Turned Pretty series, I think, from the same author. But other than that, I feel like these were just a great like starter series. Starter into my book talk booktube books, because this was one of the first series that I read that was popular on book talk booktube for sure. Then we have by Veronica Roth, Carve the Mark and the Fates Divide. But this series I had never seen before, never heard of until I was in Goodwill and I seen the spines and I was like, Veronica Roth, that sounds familiar. Well, Roth. And then I pulled them out, and when I seen her name, I was like, author of Divergent. So I instantly picked these up. Small little duology. They are like a cliffhanger and they go into the second book. It continues the story. There is a little bit of repetition. I do believe that annoyed me. But the first book was my favorite, Carve the Mark, because of the friendship building between Akos and Syra, the two main characters. That's pretty much, I think, the only POVs. You might, I think, in the second one get a couple different ones. But otherwise, those are the two main characters of this book. And I love how, without spoiling, basically there's a reason why Akos ends up on Syra's world or land or planet. I think it's planet. They end up like hating each other. He's in her house and then they grow to become friends. I love that. The second book had more like adventure, more plot, more stuff to it, because there's like an actual, not necessarily full-on war, but there is stuff going on in the world and all the planets. There is a lot, just a lot more stuff. But I felt like because I love the relationship building more, this one was my favorite out of the two. They were both very good. I read them very quickly, I feel like, for the most part, and I enjoyed every single bit of them. In the second book, there was a part of Syra, because she was self-sabotaging herself, that I did not enjoy at all. She would make people try and hate her for no reason. That was the only part that I think I hated about the whole book. Otherwise, this duology was such a great read. I was so happy to have found these, in all honesty. You already know I had to put this whole series in here. The Harry Potter series. I mean, can you honestly go wrong with this whole series? There is only one book about the series, because technically it's like book 8. This book, The Cursed Child, this is probably the most disappointing book of the whole year, and my least favorite book of the whole year. Absolutely hated this book, honestly. I will not be talking about this book and revolving it around the series, because this book should never been made. But otherwise, we have the Harry Potter series. This is not in order because I have 3 paperbacks that are sitting on top, and then of course we have all the rest are hardbacks. I've been trying to collect all in hardbacks because I had more hardbacks than I did paperback. If you did not know about the Harry Potter series, we have The Sorcerer's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, The Goblet of Fire, the turning point, if not The Prisoner of Azkaban, the turning point of the series, The Order of the Phoenix, such a great read. The Half-Blood Prince, another great read. Finally, The Deathly Hallows, the best way to end out the series, in all honesty. Characters' redemption in this one, loved it. This whole series, if you've not heard or even read Harry Potter, first off, what are you doing? What are you doing? At least watch some movies. You don't necessarily have to read Harry Potter, but I would highly recommend. It is a YA series, if you didn't know. Honestly, the last couple books, the first 2 are definitely YA. I'd say more so The Prisoner of Azkaban is like the slight turning point, but definitely, if not that, it is The Goblet of Fire is the turning point. It is like YA still, but more mature. You're watching as Harry grows up through the years, through his school years, and there are lots of like life and death. There's a lot of battles. There's a lot of things that happen in these books, and they are just so good. They are so magical. And people say because they don't like certain things about J.K. Rowling, and all honesty, you should not just always care about what people think. Everybody has their own opinions, but you should respect people for the books that they have created. And everybody says, well, she's not the first person to have magic and stuff, but she is one of the first people to to at least create a story, or at least that is well known, that created a story that's so well, that has the character doing certain things. Like these things have probably never been created until her, like certain things like Quidditch, Voldemort, just everything like that. The growing up, the coming to age in this series, this whole story, this is such a great series, and it is such a great for like beginner reading, or just when you're already older and you just want to revisit it. Anytime you can read these, and they will forever be iconic. They will always be so good, and the movies are one of the best movie adaptations there are. There are some other ones that are more so like the books, because obviously there is still some differences, but I feel like this series overall, movies and books, are just so perfect, so good. And the vibes from them, there is a reason that they're played all the time in fall, and of course in the winter, even though they show snow in each movie for like a minute or two, and sometimes during the summer. Like they always have the marathons, Harry Potter marathons, or Potterhead marathons, whatever they're called, because they are just such great books and great movies. So of course I'm going to have to add this whole series to my favorite series of this year. Then we have the Renegades trilogy, and I just did a reading vlog on this whole trilogy. We have Renegades, Arch Enemies, and Supernova. Supernova was my favorite of the series. Like most people, I feel like this was more of a YA dystopian superhero, and basically it is just a fun series to read. Just a fun series to kind of get into. You don't have to use a lot of like brain power. Marissa Meyer did a really good job at explaining the world without making you think too much about the world, and there are times where if you're forgetting about certain characters, you can flip, because she put a whole like cast list. Also says like who they are, what their aliases are, and also like what their powers are. All the powers, I feel like there are like the cliche like, oh, fire, you know, certain powers that superheroes used to have and still have, but then there are new powers that I have never heard of, and they were like kind of cool. Also to see how Marissa wrote, if they were like putting somebody to sleep, how that could be deadly, even though you wouldn't think it would be deadly. I feel like she did a good job at this whole series. It is hyped up for a reason. Well, for the most part, Renegades was hyped up, and then I feel like everybody stopped reading after Renegades, never picked up the series, and nobody really hardly finished it except for Rachel Catherine. I know she finished it. I love the series. It was such a great reader series. It was so fun to do the reading vlog, and the events that took place, each book was so good. The secrets that were divulged finally at the third book, the relationship building, like there is a subplot of romance, but it's not in the first book. I think it's at the end of the second book, and I love that. I like that slow burn more when it comes to a series, because if you end up having a relationship in the first book and there's like 3+ books, it's gonna get kind of not necessarily repetitive, but I feel like for me, I would be a little bit bored, because you already found the relationship, you already had all that, so then there's only the potential of like a breakup or a conflict to come in between, potentially put in drama, and then to get them reconciled again in the last book or whatever book it would happen to be in. And I'm not a big fan of that, but I think Marissa Meyer did it really good. Since this is more so a YA series, I feel like this is a great book series to recommend. And also it's only 3 books. Granted, they are like 500 to 700 pages, but I feel like they're not bad. I was reading 100 to 200 pages a day and flying through these books. Next we have 2 series by one author in particular. The first 2 books of this first series, I feel like everybody already knows about. Talking about the Fable series, technically Saint should go in front of Fable, and then you have Namesake. This is the reading order I would recommend to people, whoever, I mean, if you've seen my videos, you probably are so tired of me saying this. Next year, after this month, you will not have to hear me probably say and talk about these books ever again. The reading order that I would recommend because of spoilers and Saint would be Fable, Namesake, Saint, and then The Last Legacy. These 3 are all about Fable. Well, more so these 2 are about Fable, and then this is Fable's mother and father, but like I said, there's 2 spoilers in there for Fable, and I think 1 spoilers in Fable, 1's in Namesake. And then The Last Legacy is same world, different people, but they are all interconnected. It's more like a pirate, like ship type world. Honestly, everything about the series was so good. You jump straight into action. This book ends on such a big cliffhanger that you go into the second book. How I say it is she wrote one big giant book and then she decided to divide it down the middle. Saint was such a great book. The Last Legacy was good too, but when I read it, I rated it a lower one because I thought it was still Fable in them. And then I realized it was same world, just different people. But other than that, looking back, I love this whole series. It was such YA that it's so easy. They're 300 give or take pages, and it's easy to read 50 to 150 pages in one sitting. I think I read Namesake in one sitting, to be honest. I love these books. It was really great introduction for her books, and I'm so thankful I got to find 3 out of these 4 books in a thrift store. I had the time of my life reading this. So like I said, also by Adrienne Young, I think is how you pronounce her name, but I've been saying Adrena. I have The Sky in the Deep and also The Girl the Sea Gave Back. Her series is just very easy. They are YA. They're easy to follow along with. This is more Norse mythology or Viking. Both of these are, and they were both action-packed. The difference was I was hoping that this duology, because this is all that is in this little series, this duology I was hoping would be like Fable and Namesake, where it's one big giant story cut down the middle, made into two books. The first book was more my favorite out of the two because it was revolving around two different people. I absolutely love the two different people. They end up like always grown up being on battlefields on opposite sides, and then they become together. There's a lot of things. I definitely can't talk about the second one without spoiling what happens at the end of the last one, but there is a lot of things that happen in this book, a lot of twists and turns, and I love the conflicts. I love the relationship building. The male main character, Fisky, I loved him so much, and I was so happy. I was a little sad in this book because we didn't get as much of Eileen and Fisky. I think only a few times, because this is like The Last Legacy where it's the same world, just different people. I liked them. I loved them both. They were so great. They are more of like her unpopular ones, or unheard of, not necessarily unpopular, but definitely unheard of. I feel like a lot of people only know Fable, and now the new one, the Spells, or I don't know, I'll post it up here just because it was in the book of the month. But otherwise, it's like these books were so good and not really that heard of, or at least I'd never seen them. I found this one in a thrift store, and I said any book by this author I was going to pick up and read just because of Fable, and that's how I found this whole duology. And then lastly, we have technically my favorite book of the whole entire year, and I just recorded that video. I'm not gonna talk too much because I feel like I rambled so much about this book in the last video I just recorded. This is going to be, I just believe, a 3-book series. I'm not 100% positive, but it is a romance fantasy. It is Throne of Betrayal by Brianna Wilson. If you know, you know. If you've seen my reading 100 pages a day video, then you know. And also, if you just seen my last video, which is my top 23 books of 2023, then you also know how I feel about this book. Love, love, love this book. This ended on such a, it like wrapped up so nicely, and then she threw in like 2 months later an epilogue, and it ended on a cliffhanger, and I have been thinking about this world. I've been missing this world so much. I just want to figure out what happens in the next book. I don't want to rush it. It doesn't come out till next summer, which I'm very sad about, but also I'm okay with it, her taking her time, her writing it. I'd rather it not be like really rushed, and I'm just so excited. I picked this book up for like 20 bucks on Amazon. It wasn't much, and I got to read it. I'm so happy. This series, I feel like I can't really talk about too much because there's so many spoilers, and it's not a common book. Since this is her first book she ever published, this is of course not necessarily overhyped. It's not all over Book Talk, BookTube. I am loving that because I went into it very, very blind. I had 0 spoilers, and the reading it, actually the watching the movie of it was just so good. Seeing it for the first time, reading it for the first time, and then getting to the end. Everything about it was just so great, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. If you haven't heard of this book, please go check it out. Please go check it out. It is so good, and I'm not just saying that. I'm being dead serious. I feel like I say that every single time I talk about this book. Those are my favorite series of 2023. Only 7 series in this video, which is still a lot of books technically, since one series is 8 books long. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. As always, subscribe. Stay tuned for any upcoming book related videos here on my channel, or potential reading vlogs, anything like that. Right now I'm kind of in a slump, so I'm sorry about that, but I've been doing kind of more sit down videos. Thank you all again so much for watching, and God bless.